Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Big day today. We're finally starting the ES335 build. I know you guys have been waiting for ages. I've been waiting to actually do it for ages. I thought that I had lost or not taken any video of me doing the neck glue up on this thing. I couldn't find it. I didn't post a video about it, thought it was gone, and thought we'd be starting with the finishing. But I was looking through my footage and I did find it. So that's what we're gonna start with. I don't know if this footage is from last year or from 2019. Based on the hair/beard situation I've got going on, it looks pretty pandemic-y. So I'm guessing probably this footage is from kind of spring of last year. So we're gonna watch that today. It's done with my old camera and everything, but it still should be fine. We're gonna do the neck glue up, and then in the next video after this, we'll get started on the finishing. We'll do all the prep work and everything. And then after that, as you'll hear in the next video, we're gonna do a burst. So I'm gonna do a tutorial on how to do a burst finish with nitrocellulose lacquer. It's gonna be really cool, 3-tone with Oxford. So check them out if you haven't already. I will put a link in the description in that video. But for now, let's get going on this neck glue up. We're finally getting this thing started. I hope you guys are looking forward to this build. I know I sure am. This thing's got some weight to it, some heft. All right, so what I want to do is make sure that this fits. I know it does because I've done this before on this one, but just in case we need to take a little bit off, you know, you don't want it in there crazy tight. You do want it snug, but not too snug. These joints tend to swell a little bit when you get some glue in there, and you want it to go in all the way. So I think on this one, I'm gonna have to take out just a little bit. But I said that last time on a different solo build, and then I ended up not having to after all. So let me play around for a second here, and we'll make that decision right before I glue it. Okay, bridge hardware. So the way that I do this, I don't stick those all the way in because then I got to take them out after. And I've shown you guys how to do that in a video, how to remove these bridge posts, but still, it's not necessary for this. What we're going to do is disassemble that, and we'll just drop those in. Okay? Pretty straightforward. They're not super well centered or anything like that, but it's really not a problem. They're just there to hold the bridge in essentially the position it's going to be in. Okay? So we get the bridge on. Now, we go ahead, jam the neck back in here. Yeah, again, I think that's gonna be, it's a little too tight. Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna put, because it's so tight that it should stay in place, I'm gonna put my neck rest under here. I've already said this is from Solo Music Gear. If you want one of these kits, if you want to follow along with the build, check out the Solo Music Gear description, or link rather, in the description. That's an affiliate link of mine, so if you pick one up through there, it helps me out. I would appreciate it, but only if you want to do one. They got lots of cool stuff in there, of course, including this neck rest. This is one of the floating ones, so it works for various shapes. But if you don't have the neck on the guitar, it's awful. If you're trying to work on a neck that's not attached to something, oh, it's the worst neck rest ever if you're doing that. All right, so the way that we're going to check this, we're going to check the distance from the nut to the 12th fret, and that, in this case, is 12 3/8. Then we want to check the distance from the bridge, and yes, I'm using a meter stick, I am Canadian. We're checking the distance from the bridge as well, and that should be the same. And it is, so that's fine. The neck does go all the way in. You check that because if the neck tongue here is too long, you may have to take a little off the end, jam the neck in a little further if your scale length isn't set up right. Also, conversely, if everything's just too far that way, if the neck tongue's a little too short, well, you can pull it out a little bit. You can just move the neck out here, glue it out slightly further. So that's all fine. It looks good in this case. Next up, I also want to check my angle, check my neck angle, make sure I don't have to mess with that. That's an easy fix if there is a problem, but let's make sure there isn't a problem. So here we go. I'm running my meter stick from the nut to the bridge saddle, and it's just barely running along the top of this fret. It's barely touching, which is fine because the bridge will be up a little bit, which means I'll have decent action. The problem here, what you want to look out for, is if the neck angle is too much, well then you put the meter stick into the slot here and it bangs against this bottom fret and can't touch the bridge. That's a problem. Let's make sure that we're good here. Yeah, we're good here too. And I also like to check that we're actually running on the fretboard, not like that guitar fetish kit I built. So we're fine for that as well. The neck looks good and straight. Everything's fine on this one. No surprise, all of my solo kits have been, but you know, things happen sometimes, so we got to be careful. If the neck angle is too high, what you're going to do, or what I would do, is take it, put a piece of sandpaper down and tape it down or glue it down, and just sand the back a little bit with a little bit more pressure that way to flatten it out slightly. Now, I mean slightly, so you're going to put it basically flat and just push on this section further down over here, and then move it around and sand a little bit until it looks good. Or you can shim it. Those are your options. Now, the only problem with this kit, the only thing that needs just a touch of work, everything is nice, they're making my life easy, is that this pocket's too tight. And I mean, there are definitely worse problems to have. If it's too loose, that's more of a problem. So let's get that fixed up. All right, so for this one, I'm going to use one of my Hosco hollow ground chisels. Very sharp, very easy to sharpen. Nice piece of equipment. And I'm just gonna take a little bit off the insides of the pocket. This is also from Solo Music Gear, as you guys know, also available through the link in the description. If you've been following my series on that Chinese guitar kit, as I call it, the crazy Chinese guitar kit, you can probably tell just by looking at this thing and the amount of actual wood in it, how much of a massive quality difference there is. You know, taking a little off the inside of these neck pockets is not difficult, but with these carved guitars, it is kind of a pain. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt because they move so much. Now for this one, the only issue is down at the bottom. It fits in the top portion easily. So I start part way down with my chisel flat and I just put a touch of angle on it and push it down. It's so sharp, it slides through there like nobody's business. No problem. Clean up that little paper thin piece of wood there. See? Can you even see that? Probably not focused on it properly, but that's about all it takes. Shouldn't take much. And let's test this again. Okay. She's snug still. It's tight down low. That's fine. Fits in there nicely. I want it to be just a little looser than that. I really do, because if it swells when I put the glue on there, which they tend to do, I don't want to have it not fit. I don't want to have to pull it apart again. Make sure the bottom of this is nice and clean, smooth. Now here's another thing. I'm going to glue mostly at the bottom, obviously. That's where the tongue goes on that. This is where I'm going to get the majority of that bond. It's also where I'm going to have more proneness to that swelling issue like I talked about. So, you know, it's tight up top here too, but that's not a big deal. What I want to do is take off, like I said, some of this bottom portion so that if there's swelling, I don't have to worry about it, because that's where the swelling is going to happen. If it happens, it's going to happen at the bottom here. That's where I'm going to get the expansion. If it's deadly tight up top, I don't care. It doesn't matter. That's not going to hurt anything. In fact, a little bit of swelling will just push it up into the top. Okay, we are good to go. Let's get gluing. I'm going to use Titebond 3 to do this. You can use pretty much any construction glue, LePage if you want, whatever. If you are using Titebond, here's what I'm going to say. Titebond 1, or the original, probably a better choice. If you use Titebond 3 and you ever need to take the neck out, you're in trouble. It's waterproof and all sorts of other fun stuff that's going to make it much more difficult than if you're using the original Titebond. I use Titebond 3 because I also do cutting boards and stuff, and this is the appropriate glue for that as far as I'm concerned. So this is what I'm going to use, but it's not necessarily what I recommend. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but hey, here we are. We want to paint on a layer of this, not too thick. It actually is stronger if it's a nice thin layer. Now, the tendency for, geez, what is going on here? Well, I play around here. The tendency is for people to want to clamp the absolute heck out of this kind of stuff for some reason. And I understand, you get the sense that like, hey, my bond is going to be stronger the harder I clamp this stuff together. That's actually not true. If you do that, the glue can get brittle, okay? And that's not what you want. You want a nice, long-lasting glue joint that isn't brittle enough to get damaged somehow. So I know it's going to seem a little bit odd, but yeah, crank it down with your clamps and then back it off a little bit. Simple as that. Don't go too crazy with clamping pressure over a long period of time. Now you want to get kind of a nice even coating of glue over the surface. Get a little bit up on the edges here, but don't go too nuts with that. That's not the important part for one thing, and you don't want to get a whole bunch squeezing out. Another issue with clamping too tight is precisely that. You can squeeze out too much of your glue, and then you don't have enough left to give you the bond that you need. A little bit more than that. So you can see about what I'm working with there. It's not a crazy amount, but I've got a similar amount on the other surface. So there's enough there. Clamp this thing in place. Use a block of some description, preferably something a little bit soft on the back. And if you're using, so this neck's got a tongue coming out down here that I can clamp on, and that is what I'm going to do. But if you're clamping up a guitar, oh damn it, if you're clamping up a guitar that doesn't have that, he says, well, he fumbles around grabbing his stuff, then you need something soft on the fretboard, because you can damage your frets pretty significantly if you try and clamp really hard on them, okay? So just keep that in mind. And be careful when you're doing this that you don't crush the fretboard. All right, the first one's always the hardest when you're doing it in this awkward situation. Okay, now we want to make sure we're not using too big a clamping board, because we want to be able to take out any glue that squeezes out the bottom there. And like I said, don't clamp it down too crazy hard, but want to get it in place firmly. And that's about it. That gets to sit for 24 hours now, and then we will come back to it and do something fun. All right, guys, that's it for this one. I know the transition there was a little disjointed because that other footage is so old, but it's done. Glued up, ready to go, and I've already started finishing it. So that's going to be what's happening in the next video. Stay tuned, stick around. Hope you liked it. If you did, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up. And remember, subscribe so you can see the rest of the project. Thanks again. Have a good one. See you next time.